Alright guys, welcome back in our video on solving right triangles. We're going to look at another example here. So let's check out let's look at what we got. It looks like we're given two sides. We need to find one side, RL. We also need to find two angles, two angles, angle T and angle R, right? Now again, you can see why this is different than our previous example because in the previous we had we knew an angle. Now we don't. The only angle we know is this 90, right? So we need to find one side, two angles. I tend to start with what we need to know more of. We need to know more angles, so I'm going to start with angles. So I'm going to start with angle T. Notice how I'm highlighting it, right? Highlighting angle T lets me know that that's my angle of interest. Once I've done that, I'm going to label my sides. Our first side across, or sorry, let's label our hypotenuse first. Across from the right angle is always the hypotenuse. I like labeling that one first. Across from our circled angle is always the opposite side. And then next to our angle is the adjacent side. We need to know these three sides before we can do anything. Now, since we have two unknowns for our angles and we're working with t, we're going to ask ourselves the same questions we did in the previous video. Or similar questions, I should say. We need to set up a ratio. What sides do we know? In this case, we know our hypotenuse and we know our adjacent side. The next question is, what ratio uses hypotenuse and adjacent? That would be cosine. Cosine is equal to hypotenuse over adjacent. So we can set up our ratio to be cosine of blank equals, and I'm going to do adjacent over hypotenuse, A over H. Now, in this case, we don't know our angle. I'm going to put T in here. We know the opposite side, or the adjacent side, is 4, and the hypotenuse is 5. We've set up our ratio. Now, what's different about this example than the previous is we're not actually going to use cross multiplying. What we're going to do is we're going to take cosine inverse of both sides. What cosine inverse does is it cancels out our cosine. Right? We can't divide away cosine. We need to get rid of cosine. I need to get just t. Anytime you're solving for an angle inside of something, use its inverse. This gives me t is equal to cosine inverse of 4 over 5. This we can plug into our calculator. In the previous video, I show you how to set this up. So if we go to on, all right, clear, make sure you're in the right mode. We want to be in degree mode. If not, you go down to degree and then over onto it and select enter. And then from here, we can quit, second, quit. And to get cosine inverse, it's second cosine of 4 divided by 5. Sorry, let me get that, divided by 5. Which gives me 36.9, or I'm just going to round that to 37 degrees. So now I can write in angle T is 37 degrees. Again, we found our angle. Now we need to find the measure of angle R. To find the measure of angle R is very easy now. We know two angles. If you know two angles, remember we take 180 and we subtract the other two. Minus 90, minus 37. We can go to our calculator and do that, or you can do it mentally. You could do 180 minus 90 minus 37. And that tells us we have 53 as our other angle. Boom, we know all of our angles. Remember, it's super easy if you know two of something in a triangle to find the third. Now, if we look at our third side, RL is the last side we need to find. Luckily, we know the other two sides, right? So if you know two sides in a right triangle, you can use the Pythagorean theorem. We know our adjacent side, 4 squared plus b squared equals the hypotenuse, 5 squared. Make sure the hypotenuse is over here. This gives us 16 plus b squared is equal to 25. We subtract 16. B squared equals 9. And just like last week, we take the square root of both sides and we get b equals 3. This gives us our last side, RL is equal to 3. So now, again, the difference between this and the previous example is, well, before we needed to find two sides, now we need to find two angles. This information here is going to help you with the first lesson for our week's worth of material. Hope you guys are doing well. Make sure you might need to watch this video more than one time. Break down these steps. Make sure you're labeling your sides. You need to label your sides to be successful here. I hope you guys are doing great. Have a great rest of the day.